Your requests have been heard loud and clear. Today I'm going to be reviewing the debut album by Jon Bellion, The Human Condition. My name's John, welcome to ARTV. Let's go ahead and dive into this record. You guys really let out an outcry here, really wanting me to talk about this album. I was planning on maybe covering it, maybe at least listening to it, but you guys were so persistent that I decided to make it a top priority, and I'm glad that I did. This album is blowing me away. Jon Bellion might not be a name that you're familiar with. He's not a household name at this point, I don't feel like, but you've probably heard a couple of songs that he's been a part of. Monster being the biggest. Eminem and Rihanna, he wrote the chorus to that. Was very successful, obviously hitting #1 in the United States on the Billboard Hot 100. Bellion got some money from that. He was still putting out his own mixtape solo stuff, and he didn't take the route that some people might have taken, continuing to write hits for others. He wasn't satisfied with that, leaving after the Monster, taking some of that money and recording some more solo stuff, and eventually getting here to The Human Condition. He was dropping singles all throughout 2015, appeared on Zed's record. I really like the track Beautiful Now that he was featured on, and he worked with a couple of other artists during that time as well, including an appearance on B.O.B's Psychedelic Thoughts. Jon Bellion is doing a lot of things that most artists maybe wouldn't do, especially on their debut album. He's mixing a lot of different genres and styles together, pulling it off super well, and keeping it from just crumbling at its core. It doesn't feel like songs jumping here to here to here, but instead he manages to make them all feel connected. There is kind of a theme flowing all throughout here. Jon Bellion being a Christian now at this point in his life, finding God, you definitely see that kind of outpouring into some of these tracks, like Weight of the World, where he really just lets go of some stuff that was building up on his chest, and of course the outro, Hand of God, which is chillingly good. Holy shit, he really just nailed it, bringing in the choir from Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror to really nail the outro. It's a perfect loop if you're listening to this record on a night drive, in the car, really anywhere. Seriously, it's hard not to loop the album for another spin. The best part about The Human Condition, it's a smart album. It's something that does have big themes, things that it wants you to understand. Bellion definitely pushes his views on things and wants you to understand where he's coming from, but he breaks things down and not oversimplifying, but manages to put everything in a perspective where I feel like most people are going to be able to perceive what's going on here. As far as the sonic direction of this record, I'd say it's definitely all over the place, like I was kind of hinting at earlier. I mean, everything from like a guitar solo popping up on 80s films, which was already living up to its name, just being 80s synth pop, kind of taking that riding off into the sunset type feel, just giving off a great chill vibe. And he is the same, kind of creating that atmosphere, talking about where he stands at this point in his life, but kind of referring to himself in the third person, which I thought was really well done. I didn't expect this going into the album. I didn't know that he rapped, sang, produced, all of these other things. He's just very smart and intricate with what he wants to do. And the first listen through this album, I didn't know why I wasn't exactly clicking with it, and I think I found out what it was. It's because it's not what I was expecting. It's a pop album at its core, but it's not like most pop music. It's on a different playing field, and I didn't really process kind of the beats, the movements, the algorithms behind these songs the first time around, because they're not standard. They're not basic like so many pop albums and pop songs are. You can predict them at every single turn. It's a little bit off kilter on some of the beats, like Woke the Fuck Up, which was one of the singles. I don't really care for the voice manipulation in that one, just a weird sound effect like the thrown in there in the middle, but everything else about that song I came to love and appreciate, even though on first listen it didn't exactly hit me. Social commentary is another recurring theme that we're going to see throughout, and I love how he doesn't just talk about his own personal issues. He puts himself out there in the world and the general public, commenting on what he sees, like Morning in America, probably the catchiest song and the best song on this record in my opinion, to Fashion, which I thought was a little bit silly at first because I wasn't really paying attention to the lyrics, but then I realized the message that he's trying to convey with this song. We're obsessed with monetary value, material things, and he sings it so fervently, like you would believe it, but that's how some people treat possessions and things that are just so not important at all. And it plays out like a ballad, but it's so beautiful once you actually look into the meaning behind it. It's kind of like wearing this sarcastic veil over its face, and once you peel it back, you actually really start to understand not only maybe this song, but really the entire album. His faith and his religion are something that I really enjoy hearing him discuss, and just the trials that he overcame. I think my personal favorite, being a Christian myself, I can relate to some of these tracks, Weight of the World featuring the Black Keys. No, not the Black Keys, but actually Black Keys rapping on this track. The rap outro is fantastic. Totally caught me off guard because there's a slow point. You think the track is over, and then it comes in with an extremely heavy verse that really just weighs on your conscience. And I think that Weight of the World feels that way as well. He's talking about how he found this new happiness in God and how the weight is off of his shoulders. And even people who aren't religious, I think you can relate to moments in your life where something was just lifted off of you and you feel free. And I think that's exactly what Weight of the World is. I love the guitar on this track. It's kind of like a muted guitar chord that's coming through pretty simple and then starts to get fired up as Jon goes on throughout the vocals on this track. It just gets more and more passionate, and I absolutely love that. Hand of God, the outro, is another one that I was talking about earlier, one where I really appreciate kind of the touchbacks to the original part of the album, just kind of its core, taking lines from like 80s films, New York Soul Part 2, which was a follow-up song in and of itself to one of his earlier mixtapes, New York Soul, obviously, and just really showcases his rap talent there, something that shows that he's not only an MC, a songwriter, a producer, a singer, and he does them all very, very well. New York Soul Part 2 probably being one of my favorite tracks on here just because of the heaviness of the lyrics and the weight there that really pushes and sells the song. But as I was saying with Hand of God, I'm enjoying those flashbacks to earlier parts of the record. It reminds me of songs like What a Catch Donnie by Fall Out Boy, where they're repeating lines earlier in the record, but doing it in like a slower pace, almost like a gospel-esque style. Unfortunately, there's moments here and entire songs that just don't hit the mark for me. They feel a little bit more limited in what they can do, whether it be a misplaced beat or something that just doesn't quite line up in terms of the vocal department or the backing vocals. I look at tracks like The Good in Me that just feel a little bit basic compared to some of these other tracks. I mean, I understand the message behind it and I really like that, but he does it so much better on tracks like Overwhelming, where he's talking about love. Seems to be for a significant other, and he's just blown away by the reception that he's getting from her, like how much he's in love, how well the relationship is going, and it's just kind of a joyous pop song, and I love seeing the celebration there. But then you look back to The Good in Me, or even Guillotine, another track that I'm not really caring for here, and they just feel skippable compared to some of the other masters on this record. The lows aren't even that low, but the highs are so high. I briefly want to talk about 3 of my favorite songs on the record, starting with All Time Low, a track with a very simple chorus that you wouldn't think would be super effective, but Bellion's voice is just so crisp and clear, not only on this track, but often all throughout this record. You're just hearing him in the spotlight, and this song has kind of a stop-start beat, and then a weird chorus on it that you would just think would be silly because it's just the iteration of low, 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 over and over again, manipulated different ways. But it's actually quite effective whenever you think about it, because you think of like a downward spiral in somebody's life. You've reached this point, how did you get here? And you just kind of spiral out of control, so it totally makes sense. Maybe I Don't Know is one of my favorite songs lyrically, and maybe it's not the freshest thing in the market in terms of what we had to pick from lyrically, but it still feels very genuine and fresh, like he's taking a fresh perspective on this whole thing. Like, maybe I don't know how to do this, you know, I don't know why I act this way. And there's one line in particular that really stood out to me about missing people, but not even really picking up the phone, not finding the inspiration to pick up the phone and call them and tell them you miss them. Been there, and I totally connect with that, and that's what, once again, makes this album very relatable in a lot of ways. Morning in America is the final track that I wanted to throw some kudos to. I really enjoy just how catchy this song is. Vibrant, life-filled, but at the same time, it's talking about all of these things that we just kind of overlook in America. We just let them slide sometimes, whether it be mom's drug problem or a shooting, something that we've unfortunately been seeing a lot of in the news lately. And I just love how it kind of puts this cheery spin on it. It's got a big bass line, some guitar thrown in the mix as well, and some really catchy background vocals, especially during the chorus of the track. It's so well done. I could probably sit here and talk about it for much longer than I'm going to. To sum this album up, I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it. In fact, I recommend you guys check it out because I think you'll love it, and I think it does have a pretty long shelf life to it. I could see myself coming back to this for a while. It's a very enjoyable start to finish album. For me personally, I'm gonna go with a strong 4 for Human Condition by Jon Bellion. If you guys have heard this record, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. You can find a link to stream it down there as well if you have not heard the album yet. Don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. You can click the little annotations floating directly below me if you would like to see the last album that I reviewed on this channel, or maybe another album that you might enjoy if you liked this one. Thanks for watching. Maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. It's that top link in the description down below. Help the videos keep coming. Support ARTV. Other than that, I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thanks for watching.